everybody. This is Shawn Knapp with Cycle Fever TV out here for Porsche night at the Ace Cafe. How's everybody doing? Good? Good? All right. That's what I like to hear. All right. We have a great show for you tonight. I should say we. But it's Brian Cheney has a great show for you tonight. I lost Brian Cheney. He's going to take the long way just to keep me talking. All right. Well, anyways, Brian's on his way in. We got the host with most here. Hi, Brian. How's it going tonight?
All right. How you doing, Sean?
Good, good.
Good to see you again.
You too. We got another great night for Porsche night.
We're going to do our best.
You always do a great job.
We're going to do our best as always, have some fun.
All right.
Talk a little Porsche passion tonight.
There we go. Well, since Hank's not paying attention, I'm going to hand you the mic, and I'm going to fix the camera.
Okay.
All right. Here you go, buddy.
All right. All right, Sean. Well, as I said, it's always fun to be out at Ace Cafe. A nice night. We weren't planning for the sun going down, beaming in our eyes, so we had to delay just a few minutes on that so we could do what we need to do out here. But tonight is Turbo Night, so everybody who loves Porsches loves Porsche turbos. And so we're going to talk a little Porsche turbo tonight. Give you a little history lesson maybe on turbocharging, what that's all about. Talk to you about the first Porsche turbos that came to be. And then also we're going to share with you some pretty cool cars that we've got staged up for tonight. Some locally owned cars by a couple of guys that have put together a couple of really nice machines here, and they've said yes to sharing them with us tonight. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and maybe you'll even learn a little bit about turbocharging and some history of Porsche with that. So really just want to get kicked off and talk a little bit about that. So turbochargers have been around for a long, long time. A lot of folks maybe just associate them with newer cars, maybe even since the 1980s. But turbocharging actually was invented by a Swiss diesel engineer back in 1905. Now, he really had the goal of just trying to create more horsepower in the internal combustion engine. So he came up with the idea of a turbocharger that it's basically taking that air-fuel mixture that gets forced into your engine and boosting that up and really creating more horsepower for your engine. So to keep it really simple for everybody, not to get all techno and crazy with it, but that's basically what he did, and that was back in 1905. It took quite a few years for that to sort of come into the mainstream. Not until maybe the 20s or the 30s, the 1920s or the 1930s, that we really started to see turbochargers being applied to vehicles. And really some of the first vehicles that had turbochargers were in fact trucks. And then not too long after that, we saw turbocharging come into World War II era aircraft, like the B-4 Liberator. My wife's uncle flew a B-4 Liberator, a B-24 Liberator, an old bomber. And back in the day then, the problem with flying high-altitude aircraft back then was that as you flew higher, the air is less dense at higher altitudes, so they had problems with power. The turbocharger helped to solve quite a few of those problems. So we started to see applications of turbocharging in aircraft. It wasn't until later on that Porsche started to get involved with turbochargers. In fact, it wasn't really until the 1970s that turbocharging came into Porsche. So the first Porsche actually to have a turbocharger was the Porsche 917. Now that was a famed race car. Anybody who knows anything about sports car racing and has followed Porsche for a number of years knows all about the 917. This was a 12-cylinder beast. This was a car that, back in 1969, 1970, was producing close to 600 horsepower, which was kind of crazy horsepower at the time. But as the 1971 season rolled around for Porsche, they were starting to be challenged by the likes of Ferrari and a few other guys out there. So they had to figure out a way to get more power in their car. So they came out with the 91710 and then the 91730. The 91730 turned out to be the mega Porsche beast. Sort of the car that people will talk about for years. In fact, the 91730 now had a 12-cylinder engine with twin turbochargers that produced in qualifying trim close to 1,500 horsepower. So you think about that, 1971, a car with 1,500 horsepower. So that was the the first Porsche car actually that had a turbocharger, the 91730. That car was crazy fast, had a top speed of over 240 miles an hour. It held the world closed course speed record at the Talladega International Speedway just up the road here in Georgia. I think they had an average lap speed of over 221 miles an hour. So turbocharging really started to get fired up with Porsche in the early 70s. In race cars, but in street cars it wasn't until about the mid-70s, 1975, where a variation of the Porsche 911, which we see a lot of 911s out here, came out in Germany, 1975, and then it was imported or exported into the US in 1976, and it became the 911 Turbo Carrera, or more commonly known as the 930 Turbo. Now, a big difference in power, of course, for a street car in 1976 versus that race car in 1971, that 930 Turbo now had about 260 horsepower, which at the time for a street car was still a lot of horsepower. So that was really the beginning of turbocharging for Porsche. And a lot of great things obviously came out of their turbocharging of the 91730 and their success with the Porsche 917 race car. Really, the company was built on a heritage of racing, and they were really pretty much off to the races at that point. All the cars that came in the late 70s and the early 80s really started to spice things up for Porsche, and the company just became very successful on all the racing merits, and a lot had to do with turbocharging of cars back in that time. So, as I said, we've got a couple of really cool cars and a couple of guys to talk to tonight who have brought their cars in with us. So the first gentleman I'm going to call in is Charles Keller. So Charles, are you around me out here? There he is. He's going to come in. And we're going to take a few minutes and talk to Charles about the Black Beauty that he has right here. And it is a 1994 964 Turbo 3.6. So Charles, welcome to Porsche Night at the Ace.
Yeah.
Have a seat. Come on in and let's talk about your car. So, first of all, I want to let everybody know that tonight, both of the gentlemen, yourself and Nick Wong, who've come in, are coming to us by way of Simon Youngman, who has a Porsche shop up here in Longwood. He's been on the show with us earlier this year, and so he was kind enough to sort of connect us up with you guys. I guess you guys have had some dealings with him, and Simon has been a great friend of the show and been with us earlier in earlier episodes, and I think it's great that he was able to put both you guys in these chairs with us tonight. So, Charles, I think when we spoke the other day, you told me this wasn't your first Porsche.
Right.
So maybe tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Porsche, maybe the first Porsche that you ever owned, and then we'll get into the details about your car.
Yeah, really just simply by accident. I was going through a bit of a rough patch in '87, I think it was, and I was 1792 up in Sanford area, and I went by a Volkswagen dealer, and I saw this. It turned out to be a '85 911 coupe outside under the canopy. It kind of caught my attention. Up to that point, I hadn't really paid much attention to Porsche, and still am to some extent a motorcycle guy. It caught my attention. I went back, ended up taking it for a ride, and I can't explain it, but somehow the connection was made, and we worked out a deal, and I bought it, and I kept that for a number of years, put a lot of miles on it, and eventually sold the car to a friend of mine. But ended up making the same decision later on another car. I bought a 91 Turbo from Contemporary, which is the old Porsche dealership in Maitland before they became part of AutoNation. And at the time, Porsche was in trouble. They were having financial difficulty, and they had problems moving cars, and it turned out to be a $15,000 rebate on that car. I remember spending half a day on a Saturday negotiating to buy the 91, and I thought I was done, but then, and Porsche was supposed to be done with turbo at that point. The word was, no more turbos. And then you started hearing rumors about something else coming out, and next thing you know, it was a 3.6 turbo, or Turbo 3.6, you want to use the proper term. And I immediately ordered the car in December of '92 from Heinrich Bloomberg at Contemporary. came in. It was built, I think, in April of '93, and I picked it up in the summer of '93, and I've had it ever since. So I'm the original owner. Got about 59,000 miles on it. I use it a fair amount. Drive it as much as I used to. The rapid increase in value the last few years has surprised me. Plus construction and just general traffic in Orlando isn't conducive to that kind of car. But still, I'm bonded with it right now, so I'm not ready to let it go just yet.
Well, I say, when you talk to any guys who have 911s, there's just something about driving a 911 that is hard to try to, tell people if they've never driven one. We've had our 1989 Targa since 2004. I've been involved with Porsche for many, many years. I bought my first Porsche in 1983. It was a 914. And I've always been a huge fan of Porsche. So there's just something about that connection with the road with a 911 that's hard to explain. And then when you throw into the mix a turbocharger, then it takes it all to a different place. So I know you said the 1991 Turbo was the first turbocharged car that you had from Porsche, and then you got into this one. So you've owned this car since brand new in 1993, 59,000 miles on it. So what are some of the highlights of the ownership for you? Has it been a trip that you've gone on with it? Has it just been the general, great experience that you get when you get behind the wheel? Or what are some highlights for you with the car over all these years of ownership?
Well, there's certain things that stand out. I remember when I was negotiating to order the car, I had my daughter with me, and we spent a long day trying to get the numbers right. And then not too long after I owned it, I have to blame this on Porsche. I got the racing product, so I ended up doing a skip barber, got the racing license, and I spent a little more than a decade racing, not this car, but Formula Ford and some other purpose-built cars, open cars. I did that until the grandkids came along. I used to travel around the southeast with the car when I was racing. And it's hard to describe. I still have the 911 in my blood. Now I've had other cars. I had a GT3, I had a Cayman. I was going to buy a GT4, and I had one that was coming in, and I would have had to sell this car, my Turbo 3.6, to make space for it. And I kind of backed out. I just wasn't ready to let go. And I don't really regret it. The car requires more maintenance than new cars. The values, like I said earlier, has gone up, and so you're a little more cautious with it. It's harder to find people that work on assignment when I got that, because I've had a couple gaps where even at a dealership, the lack of knowledge on these older cars on some of these mechanics is, I guess I shouldn't call it amazing, maybe it's to be expected, but it makes it a little harder unless you do all the work yourself, and I don't. It's still in my garage, that's all I can say. It's a little bit of an emotional connection with that car. I put a lot of miles on it. And I don't have any love stories of any women or anything like that. I think about the only woman I've had in that car besides my daughter was my dog before she died.
Well, fantastic. We all have different connections with our cars. Some of it is just knowing that you're owning such a car. I have a good friend who purchased a roof turbo converted car a number of years ago, and he's converted. We had him on the show actually a couple episodes ago, and he then purchased a C2 Targa that he converted and put a lot of different roof suspension bits on and did a few upgrades, and there was just something about that car that kept sticking with him. But then it was at this time where in recent years when the value started going up, so he told me he was going to sell the car, and he told me the number that he was talking about, and I said, whoa, wait a minute, that car is worth a lot more than that. And sure enough, a month later he ended up getting probably 50% more than he thought he was going to get for the car originally. So I know what you're talking about when you say, hey, the values have really escalated on these cars. There's another gentleman who owns a similar car to yours that I've talked to recently, and he's just ecstatic about his ownership. So whether it's driving the car, whether it's some memory that you have of the car, or just the fact that you own such a car at this time, just gives you a lot of pleasure, doesn't it?
Well, that reminds me of two stories that will probably stick with me until I'm gone. And that is, I remember shortly after I bought the car, I ended up going to Miami for one of the first IndyCar races, which was held in Homestead. And I went down the track, and I was in a line with the park. And I don't know how it is today, but back then they had at least, it used to be a farmland. It was all muck and dirt, and it had rained. And I couldn't get out of the line. And I remember, even to this day, just how bad I felt going through with those big sticky tires. And I pushed that mud all up into the wheel well. And when I got done with the day, because this was the first day, and I had to come back. I went back to my hotel and bought a hose and a bucket and ended up cleaning the car. Spent hours on it, cleaning it, and then I rented the car for the balance of the trip. Now, when I left Miami, I stopped in Fort Lauderdale. And I guess the statute is running this, but I bought a big Gulp. At the time I was drinking Diet Coke, and big Gulp Diet Coke, filled up with gas, and I remember I made it from Fort Lauderdale to Orlando Air in about 2 hours. I still remember riding on the Parkway, doing 140, 145, 150, and looking over to my right, realizing that I-4, you can see parts of I-4, thinking that the troopers over on that side, that I wasn't paying attention to, might have seen a flash of black radio ahead that we got a problem. And then I remember one other time, not too long after I had the car, when BMW had an M3. Back in the day, the dealers were more flexible on letting you take the car out. Back in contemporary, even in the early days of automation, the Porsche dealer would give you the keys and say, take it out. Now, they take somebody with them.
Sure.
And that kind of tempers how you want to drive the car, not that you want to do this. And BMW dealer at the time offered me an M3 for the night. So I took it back to the house, and I'm sitting at the house thinking I got my turbo, and I've got the M3, and it's like, when am I going to have this opportunity to drive both of these as fast as you reasonably could on the interstate? So I remember waiting for the wee hours in the morning, and I crossed the bridge at I-4 doing about 155 in the 911. And yeah, I had a head of steam going up to it. I knew I couldn't get radar on me, on the bridge itself, just going Mach 1, fastest I've ever been in that car. And then I took the M3 out, and it was a good car, but it wasn't the Turbo 3.6.
That's right. It wasn't a Porsche.
So the BMW went back to the dealership the next day, and that was it.
So the puppy dog clothes that the BMW tried to it didn't work. No. Take it home, it didn't work. Yeah, and I think only a Porsche guy goes on a trip and buys a hose and a bucket to wash his car at the hotel, right?
I remember one time going to Savannah, and I thought the love bugs were gone. And the race in Savannah was, as I recall, either August or early September. And I thought they were all gone, so I decided I didn't want to take the car if the bugs were out. So sure enough, we hit a massive north of Orlando. And when I got to the hotel, I did the same thing. I had to get a bucket or a hose to get those damn love bugs off the front of that car.
They will kill your car. They will kill your car. And as beautiful as it is, and as much time and effort and enthusiasm you put on it, you want to keep it nice. So I totally get what you're saying. I really appreciate you coming in tonight and talking to us, and sharing the car with us. I know it took a little bit of nudging to get you out here, but I'm glad that Simon served up your name, and I'm glad we spoke the other day, and everything worked out for you to come out and do this. We really appreciate it. Hope you continue to come out and see us on Porsche Night in the future, and have fun with us. But it's been a real pleasure speaking to you tonight, and we look forward to seeing you in the future as well.
Yeah, thank you. And, we couldn't ask for a better evening. Look at the temperature, look at the weather. weather.
It's like California weather tonight, that's for sure. All right, guys, so that's Charles Keller with his 1994 Porsche 964 Turbo 3.6. Pretty cool guy with a neat story. Got some high-speed stories out of that one right there, locally. So I want to go ahead and spin into our next car here, but just before we do that, talk a little bit about that history of Porsche and turbocharging. Started in the early 70s, and really when you think about it now, if you go to your local Porsche dealer, you head up to Porsche of Orlando here, or wherever you might be watching us, today, every single model of Porsche car that you can purchase either is available with a turbocharger or has turbocharging. So as I said, turbocharging is in the DNA of Porsche, something that they do very, very well, and it's kind of fun tonight to highlight Porsche turbos at Ace Cafe. So I want to go ahead and jump right into the next car, and it's going to take a little bit more time to talk about this one, I think. So we're going to invite Nick Wong in to come in and talk to us about his car. Yeah, come right on this way, Nick. So it's great to see you. Yeah, come on in and let's have a seat and talk about your car. So 2008 Porsche GT2. Yes. So anytime you have Porsche and GT together in the same sentence, it gets people's attention, right? I think we have a couple of the brothers of this car in the lot tonight. Always neat to see some GT cars coming in here. So unlike Charles, when he was talking to us about his Porsche ownership, sort of the beginning of his Porsche passion, when we spoke the other day, you told me that this is your first Porsche. And there's something about GT cars and first Porsches. We had a guy on 2 shows ago by the name of Mike Collins. He's the former drummer for Wham back in the 80s, and he had a beautiful GT3 car, and it was his first Porsche as well. So I thought it was pretty interesting when we spoke the other day that this is your first Porsche. So tell us a little bit about that. How did you, what caused you to get interested in Porsche? You own some other cars. What was it that really got your attention and you said, hey, I want to get involved with a Porsche?
Well, strictly speaking, came down to we wanted to compete in the One Lap of America in 2011, actually 2012. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to be competitive with all the big dogs. We competed previously with a 1992 Nissan Skyline GTR, which was also mine, but we had broken down and we were competing in the top 3 overall. So this time around, we wanted to have something that had a little bit more speed and pizzazz. And I knew that Lee Keane and the guys who were top speed in Atlanta had been running a GT2, a 996 GT2 for very successfully for a couple of years. So I said, why don't we up the ante a little, go with the 997 GT2 and see how it goes from there.
Wow, so that was really it. It was all about the one lap race. So for folks that maybe aren't familiar with the One Lap of America race, I mean, I don't know, maybe people associate that with the Cannonball Run kind of thing, right?
Absolutely.
So maybe, tell everyone watching and out here tonight a little bit more about the one lap race and what that's all about.
The One Lap race is a race that originally started with the Cannonball See the Shiny Sea Trophy, which was basically driving from LA to New York. We could do it in the least amount of time possible. Obviously, as the years went by, it became less and less feasible to do a race like that. So what they did, they changed the format. They said, let's do it over 1 week's time, but we'll go to a different track every day. And sometimes you would go from one track to another track one day, and it would be maybe 50 to 100 miles, and then overnight you might have to do 1,000 miles to get to another track. So these cars had to be, good street cars to begin with, and then they also had to perform on the track too. You had to do it on street tires, and they would be different formats. Like one day you might have a skid pad test, the other day you might have a rapid racing test, drag racing test, and then the third day would be laps around track. So when you add all those aggregate scores up, and that would be over like a NASCAR style point system, that's how you determine the winners. And you do it by different classes, overalls, however you want to do it.
So they did have have different classes. So unlike the cannonball, I don't remember the cannonball run, having a class. That was just kind of the run that said, okay, we start here, and like you said, you run to California, and the first one to make it there is the winner, or in the least amount of time. So this, you really do have classes. So you had to put a little more thought into, hey, what's gonna be the car that's really gonna hit us there. It wasn't just all about speed. It was about a lot of other elements of performance, and that's what really got you into it. So did you do the one lap race? You said with the Nissan prior?
We did the one lap race about 9 years prior, 9 to 10 years prior. We did pretty good for a first time car, but we wanted to do better. So I've taken a hiatus. I started kart racing, raced at the national level, road racing, center sand laydowns, and I was competitive with that. But then we said, a few years after that, I was like, well, I kind of want to revisit this. It's kind of like an itch that you scratch. And my co-driver said the same thing. So we were like, well, let's find a car. And it was really between, like a GT2 and, whatever McLaren was going to come out. Because at the time, McLaren hadn't come out with a car yet. So we finally decided we can't wait any longer. We'll just get the GT2 in.
So that was it. You pick up the car, and in its stock trim, it's an amazing car, right? A Porsche GT2 is, I don't know, approaching 600 horsepower in stock trim, or 580 or something like that.
530 brake horsepower. But there, like every car in the world, there can be improvements to be made. Not just in power, but also handling. For example, a lot of these GT3s and GT3 RSs and GT2s and GT2 RSs of that era had very weak wheels with this. So you had very low preloads, and they wouldn't activate properly with their clutch packs. So you could really do wonders even just with a diff switch.
So you get the car and you say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and do all these modifications. So how did you determine who it was that was going to do all these modifications for you, and who did it end up being?
Well, I broke it down to two different things. One of them was where was I going to get the car, and then based on where I was going to get the car, geographically, who was the best group to do it with. And what ended up happening was that the company that helped me get the car ended up building the car for me, and that was Champion Racing.
Okay, so down in Pompano Beach.
Yes.
Champion Racing. A good friend of mine worked on their Audi racing team. They had tremendous success with Audi, and so I'm very familiar with this group. I lived in Fort Lauderdale area from, I think it was about 1987 to 2004, so I'm very familiar with Champion. They do have a tremendous facility down there. They do a lot of development stuff, make a lot of their own bits and pieces. So I know when you shared with me the link the other day, I was able to go ahead and take a look at all the things that were done, and boy, it was really impressive. The work, the level of detail, all the components that were used to go ahead and turn this into the car that you wanted it to turn into. Talk about that process a little bit. How long did this take? How much involvement did you have? Did you have to visit the car quite a bit during the process? So on and so forth.
Well, we got the car in, I want to say, March of 2011, and we immediately started working on the car. I wasn't around for the initial work. What we did was, I said I want to make sure the car wouldn't be able to drive. Typical widowmaker problem that we were always worried about. So the number one thing was make it stable enough for me to drive, because I never heard of real driver engine Porsche before, turbocharged to boot, and then we'll go from there. So right off the bat, they said, okay, let's put in a really stout diff so we can calm down the back end, work on suspension, give it a little bit of mild upgrade in power, and then go from there. So it was also mostly bolt-ons at that point. And we got the car to where we kind of wanted it to be, but it still wasn't where I needed it to be. We had problems with our porpoising above 170, 175 miles an hour, which is obviously an area that people don't usually visit, even on most tracks in the U.S. But we had that problem in Road America. So at Road America, when you hit the top of 6th gear, going to turn 1 or right before turn 1, we're hitting 6th gear at the start finish line, and we're pulling 6th gear all the way up to the turn of turn 1, and also 6th gear into turn 5, and also 6th gear into Canada corner. When it's porpoising on some of those bumps, it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. So we needed to fix that immediately. So the first thing we did when we did that was let's get rid of all the rubber. So we got rid of all the rubber in the suspension. We put it on high points, and then we put in a carbon
really stiffened things up, got it to a point where it was comfortable to drive in any type of motorsports, especially in road racing. It seems like anymore in the last 10 or 15 years, endurance racing is not only endurance racing, but it's sprint racing. I was involved in endurance racing, not as a driver, but as a crew member back in the 1980s with a couple of different Porsche 962 teams. And at that time, when we were talking about strategies for racing, it was about driver comfort. It was about making the car comfortable for them to drive and keeping a pretty nice balance between
Easy.
and easy, yeah. Because you had, but now it seems like anything anymore, it's an endurance race, but it's also a sprint race, so it's kind of hard to do that. So I can totally appreciate what you're saying, and like you said, it becomes a real safety factor. So once you got to that point, how much longer did it take you to get the car exactly where you needed it? And then at the end of it all, because it's what a lot of people like to talk about, it's a sexy thing to talk about when we talk about sports cars. What was the horsepower figures in this car when you got to the end, both for qualifying trim or using pump gas or using racing fuel? What were the differences in what you guys were able to achieve?
Well, that's a story unto itself. I wanted to make sure we could, be able to drive on 93 octane gas to get from track to track, so we could minimize the cost, driving 1,000 miles on the race field, which is stupid. Right? So what we wanted to do is make sure we had a program for street fuel, program for slightly above that for maybe a mix of octanes, and then multiple programs all the way up to a pure C16 program. And the C16 program requires removing the mass airflow sensors, so we're only running mass sensors, and we go from, I want to say, 620 horsepower per wheels, so approximately give or take 675, 680 brake horsepower, all the way up to about 840 horsepower per wheels on C16, which is give or take about 950 horsepower.
Wow, so when you talk about a car for the street with 900 horsepower, things start to get out of hand. Things start to get a little crazy, right? Because what can you do with that car on the street? So amazing figures. The folks down at Champion sound like they did an awesome job for you. It sounds like you really couldn't have been much happier with what they did for you. And the end result is what we see here. I know we've been trying to flash some pictures of the process up on the broadcast here, so people can sort of get a little bit of a view into what was done down there. I know Champion, I think, does a great job for their customers at highlighting all of these upgrades and their process. That was pretty cool. I really appreciate you sharing those links with me the other day, so we could get a little airtime on that. But, so what was the end result? So you got the car all taken care of, so what happened when it came time to go for it?
Life intervened, a lot of things happened between there and now. We decided to move from Chicago down to Florida, and then we had children, and we have been kind of on hiatus. So the car is basically a street car now, but I drive it exactly the way we had it set up initially. It's ready to go at anytime we want to do one lap, and it can be competitive. I think it still can be a top 10 car. I mean, yes, sure, it's been 5 or 6 years since we designed it for those 5-6 years ago, but it would be difficult to compete against the Nissan GTRs. But I think that on any given day, as long as it's a dry track, I think we have a fighting chance.
So, and it would just be a blast to do it. Wouldn't it just be a blast to do it, regardless of the finish?
Oh, absolutely. The whole point of One Lap America is that, you want to win the thing, but the most important thing is that you have so much fun.
Yeah.
You talk to guys like Lee Keane who've done it 3 or 4 times, have won it 2 or 3 times, and some of my other friends who've won it and just been on it, and we all say the same thing. We love the process. The end result, where you end up finishing is one thing, but the process of actually going through it is fantastic.
So it's not only the process of finding the car and having it built up and getting it to where you want it, but the process of actually going through that whole series of racing that you described to us that isn't just about getting from point A to point B. It's so much more than that on so many different surfaces, so many different tracks, so many different situations, and it's quite a challenge. And to be able to have a support crew maybe to come along with you even to do something like that is something that you got to think about as well. So it becomes a very big undertaking and becomes probably a pretty costly undertaking at the same time.
Well, one lap is interesting because as a race, you're only allowed the people that can fit in your car. So you can't bring along a whole race crew. I mean, you can have a whole race crew before the race and after the race, but during it, it's only you and your co-driver and maybe a third person if you happen to have a four-door or four-seater. So, it's really you against the elements more than you against your competitors a lot of times.
Wow, well, that's fantastic. So, is there anything else about the car? We've talked about quite a few things with your car tonight. Anything else about the car that you think you want to share with everybody? I mean, this has been this is an emotional deal for you to have this car for these years. You know, you're really attached to it. You love the car. Any other stories about the car you'd like to share with us? Any special things that you've done with it?
I think from a technical point of view, the car that Porsche engineered is fantastic. There are many things about the car that didn't need upgrading. We didn't need to upgrade the brake system. We didn't need to upgrade the steering wheel. We didn't need to upgrade most of the geometry. The geometry was pretty close to where it needed to be. We didn't need to upgrade any of the interior. It came exactly pretty much how we wanted it to be, except we put in a roll board. That's it. From Porsche, it's a fantastic car. It's really an amazing car. It's one of the few cars that you can really drive to the track, drive around, be on it all day at the track, drive it home. People ask me, do you drive the track with PCTVs? Yes, I do. I drive on the track with the carbon brakes. You turn off stability control, you turn off traction control, they will last. They will last a long time. I've taken it to road record 5-6 times. I've taken it to Autobahn Country Club 5 or 6 times. If there are any other tracks in this world that would be on brakes, those would be the tracks. And cars have no problems with it.
Now, so any Porsche has been engineered with sport in mind, with performance in mind. You can always count on Porsche engineering to put a smile on your face and to give you a car that's going to be reliable, that's going to perform, and do just what you said. Whether it be on the track, whether it be on the street, it's going to be there for you, and it's going to perform and be reliable. So, as we finish up the conversation, so thanks so much for coming in. I can't tell you how much we appreciate you sharing the car. It's not too often, ever, that we have the opportunity out here on this show to talk about a car like this. Not many of these exist at all. Not many GT2s, period, were built, and certainly not one that's had the modifications and all the upgrades that you've done to the car. So it's a real treat for us. So we really appreciate you bringing it in. Back several episodes ago, we talked a little bit about Porsche, and the folks at Porsche of Orlando were kind enough to bring cars out to us in the past. We talked about electric technology, e-hybrid technology, the new Porsche Mission E technology, which is all electric, so an all-electric sports car. And then recently Porsche has talked about coming out with more variations of the electric car.
E-Mission,
also Mission E. What's your perspective on that? So you're all about performance and high horsepower. Maybe before we get to that, the car that's just out here to my left is a brand new 2018 Porsche Panamera E-Hybrid. And this car, I was speaking to Teddy, the salesperson from the brand ambassador from Porsche Orlando. He brought the car over to us. He said this car in stock trim is 680 horsepower. This is a 4-door sedan, right? The car that so many people, maybe some of the what we call Porsche purists, sort of scoffed at when Porsche said, hey, we're going to come out with a 4-door sedan, or when they started to come out with Porsche Cayenne. They said, what are these cars? But now we have a 4-door sedan with 680 horsepower at performance levels, with technology, with e-hybrid, with electric, that it's astounding. It's amazing. What is your perspective on e-hybrid and electric technology being, sort of the pure sports car guy? How do you look at all that?
I make my choices from an engineering perspective. So if I have to engineer the car, I want it to be simple. The hybrid technology is not simple. So you're adding, you've got an internal combustion engine, and compared to electric technology. So right off the bat, I'm thinking, okay, that's going to create problems with reliability, and it's going to create problems with the working of the car. And it's going to, quite frankly, it's going to weigh the car down. It's going to weigh a lot more. That's why we didn't want a four-wheel drive turbo, 997 turbo when we built this car. We wanted simplicity. We wanted it to be easy to pull the engine out if we had to, drop it out, fix it, put it back in, no problems, no muss, no fuss. Once you start adding more and more parts, this is something we learned on the Skyline GTR, is that it's reliable. If you can make it reliable, it can be amazing. But any hint of problems has, from a race car perspective, and you could be out of the race immediately. So, from my perspective, that's the hybrid technology is not for me. The Mission E might be, because then you're doing away with the suddenly internal combustion engine. But once you do that, then I would be interested.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I talk to people about the electric technology, and I think more people today are more, well, I don't know about that. We'll wait and see about that. I think about it as incredibly exciting. I know that, from an infrastructure standpoint, the power grids aren't there and all the recharging stations aren't in place yet. But when all of that comes, I think it is going to be a very exciting time. It's pretty cool that you see what we're seeing today with Porsche, and unlike maybe the competitors that are out there right now at Tesla, you can count on one thing, and that's what you said just a few minutes ago, and that was you can count on Porsche to develop a car that you're going to be able to drive on the street or take on the track and swap it back and forth, and you know that Porsche is going to be able to do that, and I'm confident that they're going to do that with these cars too, and they've already proven that with the 919 hybrid Le Mans winning car that is now on this I don't know if you've heard about it recently, but they're taking the 919 to tracks all around the world to try to break and shatter all the F1 records at all some of the greatest tracks, and they've already done it at Spa-Francorchamps I think last week.
Yes.
So pretty exciting thing.
Yes.
So, well, cool. Well, thanks for sharing that perspective. From one car guy to another, I'm always curious what people are thinking about the electric technology, e-hybrid, and so forth. So again, I want to thank you for bringing the car in. It's been a pleasure meeting you. Really appreciate you joining us tonight at Porsche Night at the Ace. Have a look around the place. Grab some food and drink. Tell your friends about the Ace Cafe now you've had a chance to come out here and take it in. And we look forward to seeing you come out here with us again. So, all right, great. All right, take care. Yep, we'll see you. All right, guys. So, pretty cool car, huh? Can you believe a street car with 900 horsepower? It's kind of crazy, right? But you can tell that Nick's passion for car and sort of his way of looking at things from a technical perspective, it really just turns him on, and he just enjoys the heck out of us. It's always great to talk to a guy like that who has that passion not only for Porsche but just for anything with cars. So I think that's going to pretty much wrap us up for Porsche Night tonight. I don't know, Shawn, if you want to come in and talk a few things with us about things going on here at the Ace Cafe. But again, we really appreciate you joining us. Please be sure to tell your friends to like our YouTube channel on Cycle Fever TV for Porsche Night. Like our Facebook page. Just tell everybody that you can to come out and join us here on Porsche Night. It's the third Monday. I gotta look down my monitor there. It's the third Monday of every month that we have Porsche Night. And then if you just have the bug and you just can't get enough, you can come out and see Shawn and Hank and Crazy John and everybody.
Yeah, Karalee back there.
Karalee made it. There she is. Okay, I didn't see her. You can join these guys out for bike night every Thursday night. That's a blast. So I don't want to steal too much of your thunder. But,
You did great.
But thanks again so much for having us out here. If you have anything else you want to toss in the mix?
Nope. I'd just like to say, what a great job Brian did, huh? Everybody, Brian did a great job, didn't he? Look at that. Fantastic. Well, another great Porsche night out here. It went smooth because we didn't have Hank around.
That's right.
So we got rid of him. We got everything going the way that it needs to go. So he's still giving orders back there. And then your two guests tonight, right?
Yep.
It was Nick.
It was Nick and Charles. Yep.
So they were great out here. Fantastic cars, beautiful cars. And then the other one that you had out here.
Yeah, the Panamera. This Panamera is fantastic. Brand new car from Porsche. Again, it's hard to believe that a sedan, a 4-door sedan.
I know.
680 horsepower, but yet you get in it, and it's got all the luxuries you could ever want. And, you know, Porsche is just getting it right on every level.
It's unbelievable, beautiful. Listen, as I come out here, you know, we're bike guys, but we come out here every third Monday of the month for Porsche night, and we see all these. I mean, they're beautiful. I got to tell you, all these cars, all the Porsches out in the lot, and you've got a wide variety of Porsches out here, and you know, different years and models. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, tonight it was great. I mentioned a little bit earlier in the broadcast that I've been involved with Porsche for many years. My first Porsche is a car that I still own today. I purchased it in 1983. It's a 1975 Porsche 914, and I don't know if he's still here. I still see the car, but this is I think, other than Joey's hot rod 914 6 3-liter car over here, which if you ever get a chance to see this car up close, make sure you go over and see Joey Robeson with his car over there. I don't know that I've seen another 914, and there's a white one right down there.
Yep, right there by the light
pulled
post.
up here tonight.
Yeah.
So we've got cars from the 70s, we got cars from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, so we got a really great... Oh, and then we have John Reeker's 356 that was here. He was our first guest on our first Porsche Night show, the yellow cabriolet that was parked right here next to my car. So really tonight we had cars represented from the 60s, the 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way to current time. So I think we really had a great group of guys out here tonight.
You do.
Their cars and gals too. We had a lot of ladies drive up in their Porsches as well.
Nope, it was a great group, and you know, I'm gonna have you step on camera here, Brian. I gotta put an X
I know, I
down
gotta
for
put
you.
the X down.
I gotta tell you.
Okay.
So we were out there, and as we were behind the cameras, people were coming up to saying what a great job you were doing, and how well you talked about the vehicles, and how in depth you went and detailed you were, and that's fantastic. So I did admit we just wing it on Cycle Fever TV, but you really pay attention to what you're doing. So great job. All right, everybody. Well, that's another great Porsche night here at the Ace Cafe. Remember, stop by for the Ace Cafe. Porsche night is the third Monday of every month. We've got bike night is every Thursday, and then in between that, they've got a million of things going on. If not, just come for a drink, right?
Absolutely.
Check out the museum, get a bite to eat. The food's great. So until we see you here in a month, 4 weeks.
That's it for Porsche night.
Porsche night. All right, everybody.
All right, guys,
thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Great job, buddy.
All right.